for me, I have a story of my past, which has always held me back. I never felt smart enough. I didn't ever feel like I knew what I was doing. That's a scam, by the way. Nobody knows what they're doing. I don't know why that's not talked about more. Nobody knows what they're doing, and they're doing it for the first time. And
like us.
Right? And I think that if more people were open and talking about that, then other people would feel more comfortable starting and doing new things because they would know that nobody else knows what they're doing too.
Hello and welcome to the Disrupt the Everyday podcast. We're here to help you navigate life while disrupting the status quo. Our discussions cover a number of topics relevant to everyday life. We discuss everything from relationships to entrepreneurship. We also engage in some difficult but important conversations. And now, here are your hosts, Brian and Tanya Hamilton.
Welcome to episode 15 of Disrupt the Everyday. On this episode, we're joined by Rebecca Hamilton, CEO of Chick Boss Cake. This is a replay of an Instagram Live that we recorded earlier today. So I hope you enjoy, and we'll get right into that conversation.
Blogs and stuff like that. I love anything to do with marketing and branding. It is my jam, and social media, of course. It's just, I find it so fun, and I love interacting with people on social media and stuff. I've met so many friends and new connections, like you guys, obviously. But I've literally met so many people just from talking to people on Instagram and stuff, which has been super awesome. I mean, given the fact that we can't see people in person, right? So that's pretty much what I do most days. And then sometimes I will go to the store and help out with deliveries and stuff like that from time to time. But primarily work from my home office, which is pretty awesome. I enjoy it. It's great.
It's awesome. And you know what? The neat thing is, even just how I came across you, on Instagram was sent a message and you responded, and you interact with other people, and it's not one of those oh, I'm way up here and I have X amount of followers, so I'm not going to respond to you or follow back. So I totally appreciate that. That part's awesome. So yeah,
no, that's my absolute favorite thing to do. And it's funny because that takes up a lot of time, actually, just developing relationships with people and stuff like that. And it's almost sometimes I can't believe that it's my job to do that, because I'm this is the best ever. Just getting to talk to people and get to know different people. And I've found out I found so many new businesses that I fell in love with just from interacting with people too. But I totally feel the same way whenever I message people and I'm well, they have a lot of followers and whatever, but I will, if I've read somebody's book and I love their book, I will take the time and I will go and I'll message them and be you know what, I loved your book, it was very inspiring. I don't always get a response, but when I do, I'm oh, it was so nice, I love it.
Yeah, I think
it makes me feel good, right?
Yeah, it's an extra little personal touch and people remember that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, totally.
That's great.
Yeah, I feel too, people have just been more accessible since since this whole pandemic started, and people just had to get comfortable being online.
I know, I totally agree, and it's been such a big adjustment for a lot of people, but even just doing videos and the podcasts and stuff like that, I've seen more people doing that, and it's been awesome because it really shows more of your personality and stuff like that.
Right.
As opposed to just seeing somebody's picture and kind of imagining what they're like the video actually shows that, hey, they are a human and they're silly and they're fun and they're not so prim and proper all the time. So I think that's really nice.
Perfect. So thanks everybody who's jumped on. We are going to jump in, and for people who've listened to our podcast, the first question we always ask
is, who is Rebecca Hamilton?
Who is Rebecca Hamilton? Well, that's me. So I'm the founder and CEO of Chick Boss Cake. So I started the bakery business roughly about 10 years ago. I just started it out of my home, and I started building up like customers and stuff like that from family and friends from my home. And my husband and I decided, after doing it out of my home for about probably 2 or 3 years, we decided to open our first St. Thomas location. So that is our first store that we opened, was in St. Thomas. And then we were there for about 5 years or so, a little bit too long to stay in one place, if you ask me. But it was fine because it was our first store. Like, I didn't know how to run a store or even run a bakery for that matter. I don't have any experience in either of those things. So it was a really, really big learning curve when we opened our first store, and obviously really scary because we had real rent to pay and real responsibility at that point. So but it was fun. I look back on that time now and I'm like, wow, that was a lot. And it was, there's certainly lots of challenging times because we like to learn everything the hard way. So, so we opened our first St. Thomas location, then we opened London after that, which was amazing. A huge, huge risk though, going from small town St. Thomas to London because the rent was like 6 times more expensive in London, so that made me cringe a little bit. But it was the right decision because we had a lot of our customers from London actually driving to St. Thomas all the time, so it kind of made me feel like we already had that support in London, and we had offered deliveries there and stuff, so people already kind of knew about us when we opened there. So that helped a lot. And then we just opened our Woodstock location last September in the middle of COVID. And that has been doing really, really well. Woodstock has been amazing, and we weren't planning on opening in Woodstock. We wanted to do like a bigger city, a bigger area, but we found out that when we were doing our deliveries that a lot of our deliveries actually were going to Woodstock. So we're like, hey, we have a lot of customers here, and we just follow where the customers are. So I think that's good business advice.
There you go.
But yeah, so that's what I'm all about. I have the 3 bakery locations, and I just started my own brand, helping other businesses, not just bakery businesses, but just other business owners in general, either start their business or grow their business. I teach them. I have courses online on how to start a business and how to market it. I love marketing. It is my jam. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
That's great. And yeah, I can agree. Like, your marketing, when you go on your website and everything, it's to the nines. It's amazing. So I see that that's a passion for you, right? Because not everybody, people can be business owners, but they have no idea, or they want to start a business, but no idea in regards to that aspect. And it's so important, right? So
yes, I agree totally. Yes, 100%.
Yeah. So now, what got you into all of this? What's the backstory?
Yeah. So the backstory. Well, I have a book coming out. I think you guys both know that, but I have a book coming out soon. I don't have an exact launch date yet, but it's in the final stages of getting proofread. So that kind of walks through my story pretty much. But just to give you a little bit of a background, I basically had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And actually, I wanted to be a police officer, believe it or not. And so I ended up working at a shelter for Native abused women and children in London. And I ended up working there for about 5 years or so before I actually opened my bakery. And I loved that job so much. And it was a really good learning experience. But I took that job specifically because I wanted to gain experience that would help me in my policing career. And it was kind of like, as I was going through the training and stuff like that to try to become a police officer, I realized that I like to eat and I don't like to work out that much. So it really didn't go hand in hand for me. And I struggled a lot with a lot of the physical testing and stuff that they put you through for the police foundation stuff. So I decided it was honestly making me super miserable. As much as I think that I would probably enjoy a career in policing, I don't think that they would have time for my blue hair. But I just really, I was like, it wasn't my passion. So I was like, I need to find a passion and I need to just I need to do something creative. That's what I decided. I'm a very creative person. So I really wanted to, do anything related to creativity. So I didn't have any idea what that was. And I just started doing baking for friends and family for fun. And I was like, oh, I figured that I could be creative doing that. And the more I practiced, the better I got at it. And then eventually friends of friends started doing it. So I was like, you know what, maybe I'll try to do this bakery thing. But I never I literally learned from watching YouTube videos, which I feel like is how a lot of people learn things nowadays. So that's kind of the back history of how it got started. I had no intention when I was growing up or anything like that to be a bakery owner, but it just happened. I knew I wanted to do something creative, and that happens to be my creative outlet, basically.
Awesome.
Right. So I just want to clarify. So this isn't something that you enjoyed as a child. And the reason why I say that. Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Sorry. Had a call coming in on Kids Messenger.
Just paused.
Yeah, this guy's one of the kids. One of the kids' friends just called in on Kids Messenger.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's important.
Oh gosh.
But yeah, the reason why I ask is because our daughter's 9 years old and she's taken this interest in baking as of late. Like she's for her age, she's really good with money. She bought a baking set on Amazon and she's been using it quite a bit. So this was something that you actually started as an adult. You learned how to bake, I guess after you decided not to pursue policing any further.
Yeah, so I definitely loved baking as a child for sure. So I think that had a lot to do with it too. I baked a lot with my Oma growing up and stuff like that. But the interesting thing was that back when I was younger, we would bake things like cheesecakes or cookies or just really simple things that are delicious. But I loved watching the show Cake Boss, and I loved seeing all of the really colorful and extravagant things. So I just went with that part, the creative part of it. But I definitely loved baking and eating all of the baked goods when I was growing up. So for sure, it was part of my childhood.
Oh man. So we talked a little bit about the backstory. Now let's jump to where we are now. So I was on your website and just prepping for all this, and I came across your core values. Now, pretty much every business is going to have something like this, but yours definitely stood out. So I'm going to read them off. Gratitude, authenticity, integrity, generosity, and kindness are your core values of your business. So gratitude, I know that's something you talk a lot about. What is gratitude to you?
So gratitude to me is probably out of all of those things, my number one, I would say, because it is just the core of how I live every single day. A lot of those other values, I find they just come naturally. I feel like I'm generally a pretty kind and generous person. But gratitude is something that I don't think you're not born with it. It's a skill that you learn and you develop, and you have to practice it every day. But if you actually take the time to do that, it is life-changing. Gratitude makes you feel better. I definitely believe that it can make you healthier. It gives you a more positive life. I feel like you, in order to achieve anything greater in life, you really need to develop the gratitude for the things that you already have in your life. Otherwise, I don't think you can truly live a happy and fulfilled life without gratitude, because you're going about your life and you're not taking a moment and taking the time to reflect on how amazing all of these things in your life already are. And I think that a lot of people too, they think, well, how can I be grateful for all of these things, but still want more? And I think that the beauty of it is that you have to learn to do that, because it's the whole saying of like, nothing will provide you happiness. You have to learn to be happy for the things you already have. So we teach it to our staff in our business. It's something that I preach to family and friends. And there's so many books, and there's so much like free advice on the internet too about it. But developing a gratitude practice, I start my day with gratitude, and then I end my day with gratitude. And, I try to live it in between as well. And especially in hard situations, I find, the more you practice something, the quicker you get at recognizing, like, oh, I'm going to go to this place of gratitude now because this is a crappy situation. And it really helps you get through challenging times in life. Like, it's literally, I can't say enough good things about it, but it's definitely when you hit a hard spot in your life, like if you turn to gratitude, which is not always the easiest route, but it's definitely the most beneficial route for sure. So super passionate about gratitude.
No, that's great. And I think too, it doesn't, like, maybe some people think gratitude is just dependent on, like if you're in a situation that you don't want to be in and you're trying to focus on like being in a better spot financially and stuff like that. It's for everybody, whether you got X amount of money in the bank or you're at negative, right? And when it comes to the finances, or whether you're in a basement apartment or in your dream home, like gratitude just needs to be all the time, right?
100%. And I mean, if for example, if you are like in an apartment or something and you want to be in your dream home, like, I don't even think that's possible until you get gratitude for having a roof over your head to begin with, even if it is a small apartment, you know what I mean? So the more that you can develop gratitude now for whatever place you're in your life, then the bigger, better things you're going to attract. And it could be financially, it could be a different house, it could be a better partner, better friends, anything. It applies to all areas of life. So I love it.
Awesome. Now, I want to kind of circle back to just thinking in terms of entrepreneurship. And I want to get your insights on what is required for a business to be successful.
For sure, yes. So I would say the first thing that comes to my mind with that is the entrepreneur running the business has to be in a good spot themselves, because I have been in different spots in my life. I've done a lot of self-development. I've done a lot of healing and stuff like that from my past. And I can't imagine running a business, whether a small business or $1 million business. I can't imagine running a business in general if I wasn't at a really good place in my life personally, because business is a lot of work and it is really, really hard. And there are times where like I don't know how to like really describe what having a business is, but I know that fellow business owners can definitely vouch for it. It's very challenging. So if you're not in a good spot yourself, like physically, mentally, emotionally, it will take that much harder of a toll on you for sure. And even for myself, like if I was in a worse spot myself, I don't think that I would have the ability to pull myself through it and grow it into such a successful business, because it takes a lot of energy too. And I think that all of those things, like the energy, the physicality of it, the emotional toll it takes on you, it's a lot, especially if you want to actually grow it and become successful with it. It takes a substantial amount of energy, so you need to make sure that you have that extra energy in you to give. And for me personally, I didn't always have that. I worked really, really hard to figure out a diet for me that gives me energy, because I went gluten free about five or 6 years ago. But before that, before I went gluten free, I was like, I had no energy. I was super depressed. I was a completely different person. I was the person that literally couldn't get out of bed like for the day. Like, it was very, very challenging. So now that I've been on both sides of that, where I know what my body needs and I know how to take care of myself better, like emotionally, physically, and mentally and stuff like that, that needs to be like the number one priority for anybody who is thinking about starting a business, or if you're already in a business. Like, you need to put yourself first, as hard as it may be, and, figure out all of those areas to make sure that you're in a good spot first before you even start.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I like, just looking back as you were talking and thinking, so many of the people that I know that have their own business and stuff, that beginning phase. Now it's going to look different for everybody. Like, it could be a year, 3 years, 5 years, right? Before you're really feeling like you're up and running. But it's like daily, every day, in and out. And then finally, when you maybe get employees, have different locations and stuff like that, that's really when you're starting to take some days off even, so
100%.
yeah, it's like that endurance, right? That you have to have it in you. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And I was there for a really long time. Like, it wasn't until, so we've been in business for about 10 years, if you include the time that I worked out of my home. And it honestly wasn't until maybe a year and a half ago that I was able to start working from home, and start really focusing on areas that I actually want to focus on in the business, instead of having to do it all. So about a year and a half ago, I was still in the kitchen making cakes and washing dishes and all of that stuff, which I love, and it was fun, but I'm very grateful to be where I am now.
Yeah, and the process with it all, right?
It really, really is. Yeah, it really is.
And I think you talked about, somewhere I read, having that passion. Like, you really actually have to be passionate about where you're starting, because there's going to be those lulls along the way that, you may feel discouraged, or just so many things that you have to still be able to push through those times to get to where you are, right? Like, to get to that other side.
Definitely. Yes. And passion is like, that has to be like one of the forefront things that you need to make sure, whatever business that you're in or whatever business you're doing, that you are so passionate about it, because the passion is really what will pull you through the hard, challenging times, and there are many of those times. So you really need to make sure that, I always tell people that you need to be in the business of doing something that you would honestly enjoy doing for free and not getting paid to do, because that is a really good indicator that you will be happy and you will be successful in that industry that you choose. But the passion definitely has to be there for sure, because you don't make money for the first few years, right? For sure. You're always reinvesting it. Even now, we're constantly reinvesting it into our business and growing it and stuff like that. And it is definitely the passion at the end of the day that keeps it going.
Right. And I feel like it would be like anything else in life, really, that any worthwhile endeavor that you're striving towards. There's always that point where you're trying to build that momentum, and, you're putting in so much work, and then finally things start to go right. But a lot of times there's so much work that goes into that. And I think a lot of people too, as thinking in terms of starting their own businesses, think that they're going to get to a certain point and then they can just kind of take the foot off the gas. And I don't believe that's the case. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no. No, I definitely think that as you grow the business, like, the best way that I think to grow a business is to start putting people in positions that are their strengths. So I think that makes up a really successful business. That's what we've done in our business. I have my husband who works with me, and he is in his strength. He manages the staff. He deals with like a lot of customer service stuff, and he manages all three of the locations. So he is very much the people person. And I am more introverted. I'm more of the creative one behind the scenes, social media and stuff like that. So, but as we grow, we're always looking to put people, even our staff, for example, like we have somebody that does all of the phone calls and stuff like that. We have specific like rules for cake decorators, front of the house people, putting people in positions that are their strengths are naturally going to energize them. They're naturally going to do a better job for you, and they're going to stay longer because they're happier. So I think that it's really important as you grow as a business to evaluate, what you want to be doing long term, and, fill in all of the voids that you're not the best at, because you can't be doing it all the entire time. And I definitely know that a lot of people that get into business do have that perception of, they have a dream of what having a business is like. And for the first few years, it is like the polar opposite of what I think a lot of people think it is. Honestly, it definitely was for me. I was just as naive when I started. I was like, oh, we're going to have a business. We can do what we want. I could take Wednesdays off. Like, no. If you want to have a very successful business, that is not the recipe for it. It is grinding nonstop until you can afford to hire people to do specific jobs for you. And eventually, yes, you will get to a point where, if you plan it out properly and you fill those roles with the right people, then yes, you will definitely get more free time as it goes along. But I mean, like I said, we've been doing this for 10 years, and it does depend on how quickly you fill those roles too. I mean, maybe if I went to business school, then I would have done this like 5 years ago, right? Like I would have implemented all of these systems and stuff. But because I literally learned just from a lot of trial and error and stuff, I feel like it did take me a little bit longer maybe than the average person. I don't really know. Doesn't matter. I'm happy where I'm at. But it's all about how quickly you move, the actions that you're willing to take, and the risks. The risks are the scariest part, but often the most rewarding. That's why their saying comes from, with no risk, no reward, or whatever it is. But yeah, I know people definitely have a different perception of what business is like, but I mean, it's not like that.
And that's a big one. So putting people in places pretty much where they belong and where their strengths are, that's so big. Because you see it time and time again, the person who, I don't know, let's throw it out there, builds houses, that they can also manage the book, be the accountant, and, do all the pay stubs at the end of the week, right?
Well, even still, if you're the person who can do everything, it's not sustainable if you have a growing business. You can't do it across multiple locations, right?
No, exactly. And to be honest too, like as much as when we start out in the business, because yes, when we did start out, I did do pretty much everything on my own. My husband had a full-time job. He worked at TD. So we had income coming in from him, which was awesome. And it was really hard to let that go and bring him on board. But for the first year of our St. Thomas store, I opened the store, I ran the store, I helped customers, I decorated cakes, I did everything. And it is definitely not sustainable for a long period of time. And that's why as you grow and as you get the income coming in, you want to replace yourself in those roles with different people as you grow, with people who are hopefully better than you are in those roles. Like, for sure, you want somebody dealing with customer service who has a lot of patience and is super friendly and bubbly and, the type of person. And vice versa. You want people that are doing cakes to be, they enjoy doing cakes. They enjoy being creative. Generally, they're quieter people. Like, it's just kind of how it balances itself out. But you can imagine if you guys were in a position where you're doing a job that is like the opposite of your strengths, like you would just genuinely be miserable all day, right? Which is not productive for the company. And
for
then,
sure.
You're wanting to look for another job. So
no, it's so true.
Yeah.
Oh, were you gonna
No,
say
no,
something?
go ahead.
Okay, so talking about that, like the whole business aspect and stuff, small businesses, which I think, for the ones that started before COVID who are still surviving, the end is getting near, right? What are what are your suggestions for starting off a small business and keeping that successful?
Yeah, totally. And I really do hope it is the end. Yeah, so I think that the most important thing when you're starting a business is to just like have the right expectations for it, first of all. Because like we were talking about earlier, people have this different idea of what it actually is, and you just really need to be flexible, and you need to be prepared that it's actually a lot of work, and it's going to be a lot of your time invested into it without making a lot of money in the beginning, like probably break even in the beginning for a while, So I think having the right expectation when you're starting out, that, it's like people are not going to be flooding in your doors. Like it's a slow build usually. And I think having the right expectation really sets the bar a little bit lower than what we actually know is going to happen, and that you're going to be working extremely long hours. I mean, it's all what you're willing to do. If you're like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to build my business to $1 million in sales, then you actually need to be prepared to do whatever it takes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my husband and I, that's what we decided we were going to do. And we have a lot of fun with it. It's our passion. So like I said earlier, it doesn't always feel like work, which is great when you're putting in 1 million hours a week, right? So you don't want to feel like you're working when you're working that much. So definitely expectations are really important, but also something that is really important is to know that marketing is extremely important for all businesses of any size. And I talked about this a little bit in one of my, I think a couple of podcasts ago on my podcast, that how marketing and branding is so important for businesses. Because a lot of entrepreneurs and small businesses, I find, they get so wrapped up and consumed in having the best product in the entire world, which is good. And, they're like, it's my product, it's my baby. And like, I can vouch for that and relate to that. But if you can't market it properly and brand it properly and nobody knows about it, then nobody's going to buy it, right? So that is something that I'm really passionate about, teaching other entrepreneurs and business owners and helping them. And marketing doesn't always need to cost a lot of money. You definitely want to be spending some money, but it doesn't need to be this big scary thing. Like social media has made it super easy to be able to do your own marketing and your own branding, which I think is amazing. And at the end of the day, the more genuine and authentic and relatable that you can be on social media, then you're building these actual connections with people. And I think that is just such a beautiful thing, because I think now more than ever, because of COVID, people want to support local. They see how important it is to support local, because some of their favorite stores or restaurants had to close, and that's a really crappy feeling and thing to have happen. So I think it really taught consumers and people who buy the products how substantially important it is to shop local in the first place. But yeah, I think that marketing and branding, if that's really important, along with sales. Sales is definitely number one over anything, because if you don't have sales, you don't have money for marketing. You don't have sales, you don't have a business, is what I like to say. And I know that when you're first starting out, sales feels uncomfortable for a lot of people, because a lot of business owners are creators. Like they're the creators of their own product, and they're not necessarily a salesperson, and sales can feel uncomfortable to people like that. So Sales is definitely number one, because you need the money coming in order to grow your business, in order to hire staff, in order to market, and in order to actually grow. So, and sales also is a really good indicator, and it proves that people want your product too, which is also really, really important.
Right. Now, I just based on what you're saying, it sounds like you've obviously had the full entrepreneur experience, having the ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to make sure I frame this question properly. But do you?
You will not offend me. I don't think it's possible.
Well, I guess what I'll ask is, do you have a favorite failure? Is there anything that sticks out as something that didn't go right that's really helped propel your business to the level that it's at now?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I feel like there's been a lot of those situations. I honestly feel like basically anything that I've succeeded at, I've failed at it like 10 times before I actually succeeded at it. So pretty much anything that I've been successful with has had failures attached to it. There's definitely been times that I have wanted to literally pack up and quit. Like, it has been like stressful beyond like what I could have ever imagined. There's been like staff is really hard. I think staff is one of the hardest parts of growing a business, because one of the hardest parts and one of the most important parts, because you cannot do it alone. There's no way you could grow $1 million business or any successful business on your own. It's just not possible. You need people to help you. You need people who are more experienced than you. You need people who are better at things than you are. But definitely the staffing thing has always been the biggest challenge, because especially starting out, it's very hard. And I know that a lot of other business owners or entrepreneurs will definitely agree with me on this, but like, it is really hard when you have put your heart and your soul and everything into your business, and then you hire people to come into it that don't have that same level of care that you do naturally. I mean, I've worked at other jobs too. I didn't give a crap about, but
no, it's so true.
I totally get it, right? I get it on both sides, but like, when it's your business and you've worked so hard and you've put so much into it, and then you hire people who don't take it seriously or don't care, it's hard to give that control over to somebody who doesn't care as much as you do naturally. I mean, obviously. So in the beginning, when we were hiring people, that was one of our biggest challenges, because it was hard to find. First of all, it's hard to find good people in general, I would say. I think a lot of businesses, struggle finding good candidates for hiring. That's why there's all these job boards and different ways to hire and stuff like that. But yeah, that was the biggest thing. And when we opened London specifically because we were having a hard time finding a lot of qualified people who had any kind of experience, even working in a kitchen. We were just looking for people who had any kind of commercial kitchen experience. And in St. Thomas, it was a challenge. Like, all of the applicants that we were getting just didn't have it. And we thought, if we go to London, we will have a bigger pool of people to select from, which is very important as well. But also, too, they have the baking and pastry program at Fanshawe, which is where we actually found a lot of our current staff from. And that program is amazing because it teaches them all of the general skills they need to know. It sets the right expectation, which is very important. Because in the beginning, we were hiring people who enjoyed like baking at home with grandma, which is fine. That's how I started enjoying it too, but it is nothing like that. I wish that it was. But it's very different working in a commercial kitchen setting than just baking for fun at home, right? And I think that was a really big shock for the people that we're hiring to begin with, because they'd be like, oh yeah, I love baking, but like, not baking to this degree, right? It's hot in there, you're on your feet all day for long days. And it is a lot more work than I think people anticipate, right? So when we opened our London location, I think we had 2 staff, which is not a lot. And like 2 staff would probably be only what our St. Thomas store would need. So essentially, we had no staff when we were opening our London location, and it was 6 times the rent. So we needed to find some staff, and it was one of those things where it was like one of the biggest risks that we took in our business. And thankfully, it was the right decision, and it paid off, because I don't know, we wouldn't be here today.
Yeah. The next thing I'm curious about is the upcoming book. So
yeah,
can you tell us about the book, and can we unpack kind of why you decided to write it?
totally, yeah. So this book, I started writing it just this past December is when I started. So it's not like it took me a super, super long time to write it or anything. It's basically, so it's called The $1 Million Bakery. I thought that was a really catchy title, and it's something that I'm super proud of personally, that we were able to build our bakery to $1 million in sales, because for me, I have a story of my past, which has always held me back. I never felt smart enough. I didn't ever feel like I knew what I was doing. That's a scam, by the way. Nobody knows what they're doing. I don't know why that's not talked about more. Nobody knows what they're doing, and they're doing it for the first time. And
like us.
Right? And I think that if more people were open and talking about that, then other people would feel more comfortable starting and doing new things, because they would know that nobody else knows what they're doing too. But basically, my history was that I had dropped out of high school when I was 16 years old. I moved out on my own with a boyfriend at the time, which was an awful idea, but I thought it was a great idea at the time. I don't know. So I moved out. I dropped out at 16. It was a really, really challenging time in my life. I had a rough childhood growing up, so that's why I kind of left home at 16. It just wasn't a safe environment for me, so I thought that it was the best decision, which probably was at the time. And I didn't end up going to college or anything like that. I always felt lost. I never knew what I wanted to do. And I always felt like I needed to know what I wanted to do. My husband and I were talking about this the other day. We were like, why do people put so much pressure on, kids when they're 16, 17, 18 to be like, what do you want to do for the rest of your life?
I know.
Because when I was asked that at that age, I felt so bad about it, because I was like, am I supposed to know? I don't know. And it was just a really hard time and a struggle. So that's why the title of my book is The $1 Million Bakery, because it's just something I'm really proud that I was able to actually make something of myself and build a business to that caliber without any education or experience. So I thought that was a really good title. And so basically the book talks about my story of my childhood growing up and how it was rough and everything like that. It walks through that. And it also talks about how I actually built my business to $1 million in sales, which is the main point of the book, because I really wanted to help other entrepreneurs or business owners, or just inspire people to maybe start their business. People who maybe felt like I felt, like you don't know what you're doing and you feel like you should have gone to college or something. I don't know. But I just really wanted to offer my story to people to hopefully inspire them to, do something with their life, and that it's not too late, and that you don't need to know what you're doing. You just need to start. And so I kind of walk you through my book, exactly what I did. Like, I just walked through literally what I did. That's why it was so easy for me to write it, because I was just like, this is what I did. It's my story. So that's kind of what happens. And then at the end of each of the chapters, there's activities for people to do so that they can actually take action. actionable steps towards growing their business. And even if you don't have a business, I offer a lot of my life advice that really helped me along my self-development journey. It helped me heal, and it helped me grow substantially and just look at life completely different. So that's pretty much the gist of the book, and I'm really excited for it to come out. I'm very nervous about it coming out because it's very vulnerable. And I have always been a very private person. I'm very introverted. So the idea for writing the book is just to hopefully inspire and impact other people. And I really believe that that's the main purpose for everybody being on this planet. So I was like, if my story can actually help other people, then it's worth the discomfort it's going to be for me sharing it.
Well, and I guess being an entrepreneur really helped you prepare to be uncomfortable. So.
Definitely. It's definitely pushed me past my comfort zone 1,000,002 times. This is only my second live Instagram for that reason. But it's fine. Instagram live is fine. It's not even, I just pretend I'm just recording a normal video and pretend that nobody's watching. It's fine.
And you know what? It's so true. You got to start somewhere, right? Like, because if not, what are you not experiencing? Because maybe you think people aren't going to listen or watch or read or whatever, right? Like, you just got to try it and take that leap. So totally agree. So, okay, just in wrapping up, I got to ask, working with your husband, how is that? How do you guys balance work and, home life and self-care all mixed together?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I don't know. No, but we do, just so I know, do you guys work together? Or you just do the podcast together?
Just the podcast. However, I work from home, like even without COVID and everything, I work from home and he works from home. So we are together quite often.
Yeah,
we see each other a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. So we talk about this all the time, like Chad and I together, and people do ask, it's like the number one thing we get asked all the time, because and I can understand why, because I was really extremely nervous when we decided to work together, because I had thought that how the heck do people work together? Like, I literally thought the exact same thing that other people think when they see us working together and stuff. And I mean, I've definitely dated people in the past that I would not be cool working with. But I think that, Chad and I, we get along really well, which is really important. And I always joke and say, well, I mean, I wouldn't have married somebody if I didn't actually want to spend time with them. But the main reason, like, how we work it out really well together is that we both have very different skills and very different roles. So they're clearly defined. Like, my roles are these things that I do the social media marketing and everything that we talked about. And then Chad's is managing the staff, and it is dealing with the people and the customers and stuff like that. So we keep our stuff separate. And we consult on things often, but we don't step on each other's toes as far as what each other's roles are, because why would I? It's not my strength to deal with that, and it's not his strength to deal with my stuff. So we really respect each other's roles and boundaries with it. And just honestly being nice to each other goes a really long way, because, people, like, that's all people really want, like, in relationships or friendships, just treating each other with respect and kindness and being grateful. Let's go back to gratitude, that, you have somebody that I think that is, like, it's super important. So anytime that, we get frustrated with each other or, pissed off or whatever, like, we both always go back to gratitude, and we're like, you know what, just really grateful that we have each other and that we get along as well as we do, because that makes it so much easier. I mean, when you actually like each other and you get along, I mean, it's a lot easier for sure. So that's pretty much what we do. We just respect each other's boundaries. We're nice to each other. We always say please and thank you to each other. Like, just be a nice person. It works well in relationships.
For sure. And I think also, like, everybody has the same goal, right? Like, you're trying to get to the same place. You know, it's not a one-up type situation. Like, we're here to support, right? And I think that's also a really big one when it comes to, like, whether it be, you know, your husband, wife working together, like siblings, best friends. Like, it can get really messy, but it can also really, really work. So
yes, and I love that you said that, because being on the same page as each other is actually like probably the most important thing for sure. Probably even like for you guys with parenting too, like it makes things so much easier when you have the same goals together, because it doesn't matter who's right or wrong or whose opinion is this or that. If it's the best decision to get you closer to that goal, that's all that really matters. So when you're on the same page, is that you're not so much being like, oh, I want to do this or you want to do that. You know what I mean? You're on the same page and you go with the best decision. It doesn't matter whose it is.
For sure.
Right. And what I've come to learn is if you can't get on board with a Hamilton, the problem's probably with you. So
yeah. Actually, I'm pretty sure that's scientifically proven. That's great.
That's funny.
All right. So sorry. So obviously you have the podcast, the book's on the way, the business continues to grow. You know, what else are you up to? Where can we find you? What are the best ways to connect with you? I know obviously Instagram works.
For sure. Yeah. So Instagram is my favorite platform. So you can find me at Rebecca at Chick Boss Cake. My bakery is at Chick Boss Cake. I'm also on Facebook too as Rebecca Hamilton. My podcast is called Scrap the Sweet Talk. You can find it anywhere that podcasts are. And my email is Rebecca at Chick Boss Cake. But you know, Instagram's my favorite. So I'm glad we're doing an Instagram live. It's great. And yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. The time has like flown by. We were thinking it was going to be around a half hour. So we appreciate that. Before we go, we're going to do our draw. So I have all our names in here. That one. Yeah.
Oh, look at this.
So shake her up. Just ripped up pieces of paper. So this was for just sending us for people who have listened, sending a review and rating on iTunes. So the winner is...
Okay, that's
my son put his name in.
So we're gonna redraw.
If we get my children's names, because they put their names in when we were upstairs. You're like, we want it again. The winner is Nicole. So I will message you, and you deliver to Kitchener, right?
Yes, we do every day.
Kitchener's on the every day. Okay, awesome. So congrats, Nicole. You win $50. And this was awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for everybody who joined in at some point during this conversation. And we'll have it on now after this, since it's our first one. We got to figure out how to save it and then be able to upload it. But I've watched a couple of videos, so I think we'll be okay.
Awesome.
Great.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for having me. I felt like before we even did this, we like kind of already knew each other because we were talking so much, and you guys are just so down to earth and are so comfortable to talk with. So we should definitely do this again. It was so fun, and thank you for having me.
Yes, for sure. Absolutely. And likewise, and when your book comes up, we'll have you on the podcast.
Yay, amazing.
Awesome. Have a great night, Rebecca. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Congrats, Nick.
Thanks for listening to the Disrupt the Everyday podcast. For more ways to listen, connect with us on social media. To be a guest or to partner with us, check out our link tree at Disrupt the Everyday. Join us next time for more ways to disrupt the everyday.